Sounds good.
Welcome back, friends. I'm here today with Laura Gassner Otting, and Laura is an author, coach, all good things, consultant, and she speaks with change agents, entrepreneurs, investors, leaders, donors, all sorts of good people to get them past the doubt and indecision that can sometimes put us into limbo or into like stuckness, perhaps. So she offers strategic thinking, well-honed wisdom, and perspectives informed by her decades of navigating change across the startup, nonprofit, political, and philanthropic landscapes. All amazing things. So thanks for being here today, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Hannah. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, we were just chatting. This is Laura's second interview here. We talked a couple years ago about her book, Limitless. And I wanted to revisit this conversation because so much of what you teach and what you stand for is essential right now, especially in this era of, global pandemic and COVID. So thanks for returning. For folks who might not have heard you the first time, tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and more about your story that got you to be where you are today.
Yeah, so my story is basically that I am also an entrepreneur, but my entrepreneurship journey started about 10 years into my career. So I spent the first 4 years of my career working in the Bill Clinton administration, helping create the AmeriCorps program, which is the National Community Service program, and then went from there as somebody who was 25 years old. Didn't really have any discernible skills, but had a Rolodex that could choke a horse into executive search. And I spent 5 years at an executive search firm, really learning from the best and the brightest how to do this work in an amazing way, until one day I had that experience that I know so many of your listeners have had, that moment of rage where I was like, I could do this better and faster and with more authenticity and more integrity and probably more profitable and probably cheaper for my clients, but more money for me if we do it a different way. And I went into my boss's office and I was like, this is the way. And he was like, there is the door. It was one of those, like, you could stay
Mm-hmm.
and keep doing things our way, or you could leave. And so I've been doing executive search for 5 years. I had that moment of rage. I started my own firm, and then I ran that, built it, ran it, and eventually 15 years later sold it to the team of people who helped me build it. So Limitless and my entire mindset comes out of 20 years of executive search, interviewing thousands of people at these massive moments of career shift, who I was calling as a headhunter because they were super successful in the work they were doing, but they were taking my calls as potential candidates because even though they had all that success, they weren't really all that happy and they wanted a different job. And so Limitless is really written about this idea of consonance, which is the alignment, the flow that you feel when you are doing your very best work for something that matters to you and being rewarded for it in a way that is actually meaningful in some way personally to you. So Limitless is really wrapped around this idea of how do we each in our own journeys find consonance in our lives so that we can have alignment and flow and have both success and happiness.
Oh my gosh, so much to unpack here. I love that. And the first thing I want to really underscore is that moment of rage that you share. And I love the way that you frame that because I think in my own life and in clients and people I talk to, like, why does it have to be hard, right? Those moments of rage or contrast either make or break someone. You obviously took the high road. You said, I know that this is the way I want to go. I'm going to trust myself and walk out the door. But sometimes we get caught in this this downward spiral. And something I've been studying a lot more is just like how important those feelings are. Like frustration is not a bad thing. Frustration is an indicator that you know there's something better. If you're complaining about where you're at right now, that just means you believe you should be doing something else, not being stuck where you are.
Yes, that
Anything
is
to
so
say about those
true.
moments?
Yeah, so Moment of Rage is actually not mine. It belongs to a woman by the name of Margaret Heffernan, who is an academic, actually based here in Boston, where I am. I think she's at Harvard, but she wrote a book called How She Does It. And in that book, she interviewed, I think, something like 60 female entrepreneurs who had everything from $600 in revenue to $600 million in revenue. And she said 201, at some point, they had a moment of rage where they were like, this can be done better. And I listened to her. I was probably 3 or 4 years into my entrepreneurship journey, and I heard her at a book talk speaking about this, and I was like, oh my God,
That's
I
what
had
I'm
that
in.
moment of rage. Right. And I didn't even realize it at the time, but as soon as she said it, I had the same reaction you did, which was like, yes, I had that moment of rage. And here's the thing about the moment of rage. Once you realize that the work you're doing isn't the work you're supposed to be doing, that you're actually not part of the solution that you thought you were part of, it only leaves you in one place. And that's that you're part of the problem. And being part of the problem is kind of untenable, right? You have determined that this organ doesn't fit in your body. And suddenly, once you know it, it's like all of your cells attack it. It becomes organ rejection. And so,
Mhm.
for you, for me, for your listeners who have chosen that journey of entrepreneurship, it is because there was this moment when you were like, there has to be a better way, and I
Yeah.
have to be the one to do it. Even if I don't quite know how, I know that I can't not do it. And I think that's happening to a
Mhm.
lot of us right now
Yes.
during COVID, because we're feeling like, like everybody keeps saying like, well, I guess this is just the new normal. And
Mhm.
I reject the concept of the new normal because I rejected the concept of the old normal, right? As an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you never were comfortable with a with a normal, which is why you started your own thing. So I don't know why we're all searching for the new normal, because we didn't like the old normal. What we need to find is our normal, what works for us. And I think, I don't know about you, but I spent the first couple months of the COVID lockdown feeling like a victim. Like, I
Mm.
spent the last 3, 4 years building up this speaking practice, this
Mm.
consulting practice, this coaching practice. And all of a sudden, I can't get on a plane. I can't get on a stage. It stopped me from running my business. It stopped me from doing all the things that I've spent the last 4 years building. Boo hoo. It's all the fault of COVID-19. And the truth is, COVID-19 wasn't the problem. I realized that I was the problem.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so poignant the way you said that. And I said early in COVID, I had my, pity party with wine and hummus, like this is the end of the world thing, whatever.
Oh,
Um
hummus. I went right for the s'mores, my friend.
um and I remember thinking, okay, well, if I was a true entrepreneur, right, like coaching myself, like every breakdown is leading to a breakthrough. Like this has to be an opportunity. This is our time to pivot and evolve. And then to what you just mentioned about speaking or what you've built up, I heard a clip of Simon Sinek, who wrote Start With Why. He was talking to his team and he said, early in the pandemic, like, we're going to be fine. But if you think you're going to be on a speaking stage or your job is going to look the same next week, next month, the next year, you're wrong. If you want it to be the same, leave. And
Hmm.
the way he presented that was just so powerful. Like, yeah, you can keep waiting for the sun to shine again and your stage to be ready, or we can, use this time to evolve, to become different, to become better. And like you said, that's really what we want as entrepreneurs anyway. It's just that the
Yes.
universe or whoever gave it to us, instead of us deciding, I'm going to walk out this door, right?
Absolutely. So I came to this realization. I mean, for me, it was like a 2 month rager of a pity party, which was, I think I gained the COVID-15 during the COVID-19. And I had this moment of clarity where I was like, COVID-19 is not stopping me from having a stage. I'm stopping me from
Mm,
having a stage, because I've
mm,
always I've always defined being a speaker as getting on a stage and speaking. But and when I assumed that that was the only way to do it, I mean, without any basis in fact, I assumed that I decided that the speaking was over because I couldn't reach an audience bigger than like my last dream gig of 5,000 people in an audience. And then one day I was like, wait a minute, if I'm limiting my possibility, if I'm limiting myself by defining success only in the way it's historically been defined by my profession, i.e., speak on stages, then I'm gonna be right, Simon Sinek. Like, there's no stages. Like, if you think that's gonna happen, you're sorely mistaken. And so what I realized was, actually, there's never been a time when access to audiences has been so democratized, right? So flat,
Mm-hmm.
so open. There are no gatekeepers. All you need is an internet connection and a webcam and a decent
Right.
microphone. And suddenly, forget 5,000 people, you could have 50,000 people, you could have 500,000 people. Like
Yeah.
it is all up to like, how good is the content you're putting out? How relentless are you going to be in pushing it out to people? Like if what we are trying to solve is the issue of like, how do I get my intellectual property and my content in front of paying customers? The problem isn't COVID-19. Frankly, I was just under the illusion that I was doing well before, and I was
Mm-hmm.
settling for a smaller audience than I could possibly have using the internet. And that's when I was like, oh, COVID isn't the problem, I'm the problem, my imagination is the problem. And so I stopped and I asked myself three very specific and very basic questions, right? If there's never been a time when access to people's minds and hearts and wallets has been so democratized, and if there's never been a time where there have been no gatekeepers stopping me, then what's the calling I want to serve? Like, what is the thing that I
Mm-hmm.
want to solve in the world? What is the calling I want to serve? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, what is the work that I can do that connects to that calling? So there's a problem in the world that I want to solve, and there is specific work that I could do that the problem needs. Number two. Number three, what's the most effective medium through which I can do that work? And I know what the calling is and I know what the work is. I just had the medium wrong. And as soon as I
Mm-hmm.
realized that the medium is the internet and is online courses and is live daily shows and is podcasts, and then suddenly I was like, oh, there's so much more work to be
Yeah.
done that I can do to get to my calling.
Yeah. Like you said, you were kind of like in the settling. And think a lot of us got comfortable with like what was working in 2019. And the truth is this is always evolving, right? Like now there's like things like TikTok and, it's always going to be something new. So I think those three core questions you just walked through are ones to rewind and repeat and reflect on. Those are powerful, not just now, but at any point in your business to revisit.
Absolutely, because like, what is the calling I want to serve? What is the work I can do to connect to that calling? And what's the most effective medium through which I can do it? I mean, the answers to those questions are clarity, creativity, and limitless possibility.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Something else I want to circle back to, you mentioned that you realized that the quality of the content you were putting out and how relentless you were in those messages was part of your, reemergence or like shift during this time. So talk to us a little bit about how your marketing has changed and what's working for you now.
So my marketing has changed in that I'm putting, so, okay, when I first put out Limitless, I was like, people want to understand where in the process they fall. So if in order to be limitless, you have to find consonants. And if consonants is made up of having calling, connection, contribution, and control, I'm going to put together a huge quiz that's going to be 67 questions long, and people are going to dive deep into it and they're going to figure it out.
The psychology
Awesome.
major in me loves this though. Like I
Okay,
totally
yeah.
think the same way. I'm like, let's map this out. Let's get you a score. Let's move forward. I get it.
I don't just give people one score. If you go to limitlessassessment.com, you get two scores. You get your how much of calling, connection, contribution, and control you want to have in your life, and how much calling, connection, contribution, and control you actually do have in your life. And then you get a radio chart that shows you where these things overlap, and where they don't overlap is where you need to do some work. And then you get some tips on it, which is awesome. Except the problem is that most people are too lazy to get through 20 minutes of questions that are really hard, deep, tough questions. So I had tens of thousands of people in the hundreds of podcasts and, Today Show, Good Morning America, all of that, come to limitlessassessment.com to take the quiz. And then like 7,000 of them finished. So
Wow.
it turns out that that's really hard. And I was like, okay, I get that. But now COVID is happening. And
Mm,
people really are like, when life goes back to normal, is the life that I'm going back to, is the normal I'm going back to really the life that I want? They're really going to
yes.
want this quiz now. So I sent it back out again. And again, the same exact thing happened. And then one day I woke up and I was like, I could ask 4 questions, one about calling,
Mm,
one about connection, one about contribution, and one about control. Everyone can take a 4-question quiz. And the result of that then gets them a 2-page download. Here's your free results and
mhm.
your free 2 pages on each of the 4, on whichever one of the 4 things, and an invitation to then join a webinar where I give you for 45 minutes something free about like the 3 lies you're telling yourself. And then from
Mm.
there, you're in the funnel that then gets you invited to take the longer quiz. That then gets you invited to the course, all that.
Sure, sure,
And what
sure.
I learned, micro yeses get you to the
Yes.
macro yes, but I didn't understand. And what I thought was, if we're in crisis, people want to go deeper. And it turns out when we're in crisis, people want short and fast and feel good and motion, because everything feels so out of control that if they can
Yes.
do a 4-question quiz and get an answer that's useful and is good, actual, real content, that's going to go so much farther than trying to go super
Absolutely.
deep with them in the beginning when they're just exhausted.
Yeah, yeah, the thing I keep telling clients is people want certainty. And even so, like, they want clear 4 steps. They want to go do your training. They want to say yes and move forward. And I think even peeling it back a layer, because there was probably micro yeses to even get to that quiz, right? And then
Yes.
you just keep warming them up. And
Yes.
one of the things that's just like crucial in marketing that I'm seeing right now is a clear outcome. Not just saying like
Hmm.
take a quiz and get information. Like this quiz will lead to your calling, or like
Yes.
there's an outcome at the end of this. And a lot of
Yes.
coaches I talk to and a lot of people here, they want to sell the process. That's work. I don't have time or energy to think about the how to. So I've been seeing marketing like this will help you achieve B. Go from A to B in 4 questions. And I think what you're sharing with like that, with the micro yeses, is really what people need right now. They need certainty, they need hand holding, and they need to like follow through on something, right?
Absolutely. So when I launched the Limitless course, I put up a subpage on my website, which is just heylgo.com/learn. And if you go to heylgo.com/learn, you get a whole page about the course. And I originally wrote it like, here's the course, and there's videos, and there's a beautiful
Mm,
70-page workbook that you get that walks you through all these exercises. And I sent it to a friend of mine, Clay A. Bear and Angie Lee, who run the marketing school, who are just so brilliant in this. And he's like, no, nobody wants to buy a process. They want to
right.
know, like, what am I going to get out of it? So like if you're selling somebody how to work on social media, it's like, here's the, here are the top 10 tips to turn your viewers into, buying customers, or, like, so if you go to heylgo.com/learn, what you get is like, you might be this kind of person and you may be feeling this. And instead, what if you felt that? And what if you could understand who you were when you were at your very best, and
Mm,
brought that with you to everything you did, and got rewarded for those endeavors in ways that are meaningful to you? And even better, what if you stopped worrying about other people and you figured out what mattered to you, and you ensured you were doing the work you were put on this planet to do? And so it's like results oriented, but it
yeah.
took me, because I'm such a process nerd. But back when I ran my executive search firm, I would walk into clients' offices to do a pitch, understanding that I left the big firm because I knew that there was a smarter, better, faster, more authentic way to do it. And I was like, hi, let me tell you how we do this search work, because it's so cool. And we're like twice as clever as everybody else. And it's a super cool way to do it. And they were like, great, awesome. And then I'd leave and I'd get like half the things I pitched, which was pretty good. And I was like kind of resting on those laurels. And then one day I pitched an organization where a friend of mine worked, and she was in the room, and we didn't get the pitch, and we didn't get the work. And I called her up afterwards and I was like, come on, what gives? And she was like, Laura, do you find good candidates? And I was like, yeah, we find the very best candidates. And she's like, yeah, so you never said that.
Mm,
Every other firm walked in and said, we find the world's best candidates. Now let me tell you all the ways and how we do it. Whereas you just start with like how you do the work, which is all about you and your problem, which
mm.
is that you need more clients. But it wasn't about us and our problem, which is that we needed to find a new CEO. And ever since then, I walked in and I started with, here's your problem. I see it. I understand it. We're going to solve it. Now, let me tell you how.
Amazing. Amazing. And something else you're mentioning, I think is really pertinent right now. And we know that people either buy themselves out of a problem or into a solution. Again, it's like not the process or what Laura does for me, or how great she is. It's like out of a problem or into a solution. And tell me if you've been seeing this as well. people want solutions, like positive marketing, and not saying like, stop doing this. Like those messages aren't landing as much as like the aspirational achievement, like goal focused outcomes. Have you been seeing that too?
Yes,
Amazing.
100%. Yeah,
Cool.
I haven't heard it expressed that way before, but I really like that.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, and we need it, right? We got to lift each other up, bring the positivity in. And that's what I'm
I think
seeing working.
there's just so much negativity everywhere right now that I think people really want to latch on to, hope and progress and momentum and forward movement. So
Totally.
it it's not only a logical because they see a solution, but it feels good too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about that solution, about the point B that you're working with people now. I know you're transitioning to the online course space. So talk to us about what's happening in there.
Yeah, so I had the greatest time ever putting this course together. I didn't
That's
want
a
to
good
do it at
sign.
first. Yeah,
Following joy.
I was following it. Yeah, I was so scared to do it because I didn't think it was going to be good enough and I wasn't sure and I didn't know and I should have done it before the book came out a year ago,
Okay,
but
hold on, hold on. I just had to stop you for a second. I just hope everyone listening is hearing like someone who helped create AmeriCorps, who's been her own boss for, 20 years, has these thoughts. Like what you just said, I think is so real. Like everyone is sitting home thinking like, should have done it earlier, did it wrong. Am I good enough? Am I ready? And like, that's normal. But let's listen to how Laura like worked through that and didn't sit on the couch forever and like move forward. So many people have that in their head right now. So
Oh
thank
my
you for
God.
being
Yeah, well,
honest.
let me tell you something. I get off stage. Well, I got off stage when we still had stages. And I would have people at some point in the book signing line, there would be some person, usually a young woman, at some point who would ask me a question and say, how'd you get to be such a badass? Or some kind of like version of like, where'd you get your confidence from, or things like that. And I would always laugh because I'm like, I didn't get, like, I can play fierce on stage, like I know how to do it.
Mm,
But the truth is, I'm just a giant bag of bones and insecurities like everybody else. Like we all
mhm,
have the same stuff. The difference is that I don't see failure as finale. I
mm.
know that I'm going to do some things that are going to work well, and I'm going to do some things that are going to be a total flop. But my favorite quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, and she has a lot of very good quotes, is this: you would worry a whole lot less about what people thought about you if you realized how seldom they did. The truth is, most people aren't paying attention enough to see our successes, let alone our failure. So I know
Right.
that when I fail, like think about it, Hannah, think about every failure you've ever had. You survived them,
I'm
and
gonna need more
B,
time. Hold on.
yeah.
I'm still thinking of them.
But look,
Yeah.
number one, you survived them. And number
Yep.
two, you learned something from them. So we
Absolutely.
know that failure is not finale. It's merely fulcrum. It's the place from which you
Mm,
learn and you grow and you iterate and you get better. So I was afraid to do the course because I didn't think I'd get it right. And then as soon as COVID happened, honestly, this was like back in March, and I had that like, oh no, I'm going to get sick. We're all going to get sick. I better get this thing done before we're all sick and I can't do it. And everyone's going to be home for a while. So I bought a secondhand camera from a local camera store. I bought a fancy mic. I downloaded some software, and then I put together the scripts. And then I put everything together in my living room, and I started to hit record. And the sun went down just low enough that it came in through the window, and all my lighting was ruined. So I had to start again the next day. And then the next day, I basically filmed the entire thing in one day.
wow.
And the truth is, I uploaded them all into Kajabi. I put together this gorgeous, it's like a 70-page workbook of incredible exercises. But I put together a giant Google sheet where I was like, okay, page 1 I know is going to be this, page 7 I know is going to be this. I'm not quite sure about pages 2 through 6 yet, so I'll just leave those blank, and then I'll go on to
Cool.
page 8. And I just like built it as I went, knowing that the
Yes.
perfect was the enemy of the good. So I was building it as I grew it, knowing that when I put up a video, if the video wasn't good enough, I could go back and refilm it and put a new one up later. But I could just get it up and I could get it going. And then I posted on Facebook, and this is the way, if you really want to get something done that you're afraid to do,
Yeah.
make a public commitment. So I posted
Totally.
on my personal Facebook page, hey friends, I've been working on this thing for the last year, and I hope that you're excited about it. BS, right? I'm the Wizard of Oz. I also figured people would be nicer if they knew I'd worked on it for a year. I've been working on it for the last
Well, you
year.
have. I mean, you've been working on the book and the process for years and years and years. It's a
Yeah,
culmination, right?
it's not a lie, but it was an exaggeration. So I was like, I'm working on it for a year. I would love to have a few friends to just test drive it and just make sure it all works and like help me get it over the finish line. And within an hour, I had 150 people raise their hand to volunteer to be beta testers for the course. So I spent a month having them go through it and test it and make sure that everything is good. And if there was one single word that people couldn't understand in the video, I reshot the whole video and I got it done and I got it up and then I launched it. And I knew I had the confidence to launch it because I knew I had already displayed the competence in being able to run it and being able to do it. But really, when I posted that thing, hey, I've got this thing I've worked on for a year, I literally hadn't filmed the first video.
Totally.
But the fact that I had 150
Yeah.
people are like, we want it.
Yeah.
It made me do it because I couldn't not do it now that I've announced it to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I teach coaches often like enroll before you're ready. Like those first clients will move you to finish the program or will move you
You're
to get
never
better.
You'll never be ready. Ready is
Right.
nonsense. Like ready is it's a facade. It's nobody's ever perfectly ready for anything. And even if you are, even if I had done this, like say I had done the thing and I'd finished it on February 28th and I put it out into the world, then COVID happens.
Right.
So the whole thing changed. Like the world changes. So even if you're ready, the world keeps changing. So you have to keep pivoting and changing and growing. So why not just start?
Totally. So many great lessons in that. I hope people are listening if they're thinking about doing something new or evolving the way that they work, because what you just broke down, I think, is a really beautiful process. And there's lots of nuggets people can glean and implement, but it really is about just taking that messy action and just starting, like you said.
It's all
So,
about just starting.
yes, Laura, you have given us so much to work with already. The course is out there, whether it's ready or not, like you said. So tell us a little bit more where people can work with you or continue this conversation.
Yeah, so my name is Laura Gassner Otting. It's a lot of name, and all my friends call me LGO. So you can find me at my website, which is Hey LGO, HEYLGO, and on all the socials at Hey LGO. And if you're interested in the course, it is at heylgo.com/learn.
Amazing. And what specifically do people achieve? What is the course designed for? And what might they want to visit
Yes.
for?
So the course is designed for people who are trying to figure out if they want to make a transition from what they've been doing to what they want to do next, if they are successful but not exactly happy and fulfilled, if they're waking up and going, I don't really want the new normal, that's not interesting to me, I want to figure out my own normal, if they're entrepreneurs who started businesses because they loved what they were doing and now they find themselves managing a business that's just like a pain in the ass because they've sort of grown and they're like in that place where they don't get to do the stuff they love, but they have to deal with all the nonsense that they hate. So anybody who's in a place where they're like, I'm ready for a mindset reset. I'm ready to understand how to do the work that actually is connected to the stuff that I love. I want to be able to manifest my values through my work on a daily basis and feel like I have some control over my life again. The course really walks you through 8 modules that help you figure out how you get from confusion to clarity. And what that is discovering how you personally define success, how much connection you need to the work that you're doing. What is that calling that you're reaching for? How do you get the work to contribute to the life that you want to live, the career trajectory you're looking for, how you manifest your values on a daily basis, and also how to get control over this life right now. And so at each of the modules in the course, there are videos, there are these exercises, there's extra reading, and there's also a Facebook group that I also piloted because I'm thinking about in the fall creating like a mastermind level course. But I figured if I want to pilot that in the fall, I'm going to let everybody who's enrolling in the essentials level course have access to it now. And that comes with conversations, extra exercises. Every Friday I go live in the course and we have a Zoom call where we do like live coaching and we talk deeper about certain subjects. So it's really unparalleled access to me as a coach and as a mastermind leader in ways that are far below what my executive level clients are paying.
Amazing. So much good stuff, and definitely a great setup for what it is and what it will be, because I'm not sure about this whole new normal or what's, we're not going to return to whatever it was before. So powerful stuff inside, it sounds like. Thank you again, Laura. We'll make sure that we get links to all of those resources you shared. And friends, I will be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help make your dream life your real life.